now clicking on the recording. So I'm going to make sure that I'm recording and letting everyone know that they are being recorded. There is a privacy policy in place, but it's always compulsory to let everyone invited that they have been recorded in case that the recording is going to be shared among the colleagues. So that's done. Okay. So I am already sharing my screen. So I'm clicking on the PowerPoint presentation, and you should see the presentation on the left side. Basically, the presentation is only for your reference. We will not go through the presentation, and we will not read out all the different points. But I think it's important to that it's some sort of a skeleton of the whole session. This session it's intended only to, let's say, give you a walkthrough on the application. Probably, if you're already familiar with the Teams application, most of these features will not be something that you haven't already used. But for most of us who have been dealing with Microsoft Teams only for the past months, I think that if we go through all these agenda items in 45 minutes, you will be more than ready to hold a meeting, hold a one-to-one meeting, adding a member to a particular chat or a meeting, create a meeting using the application or using the web application, sharing files, knowing how to use the chat, knowing how to retrieve a video that you have recorded. So at least the basics, because to the best of my knowledge, we're going to be telecommuting for quite some more weeks. So the more that we are familiar with the application, the better, so we can coordinate and we can work together in a more efficient way. So this is the agenda for today. First, we're going to go through where I can find Teams in my computer. It seems simple, but sometimes people do not know that you have two apps, one in your own VDI and the other, it's an online application. So it's pretty much the same that it happens with Power BI. So important to know that you can use both in your own VDI or remotely using the online application. Then we will move on to the basic navigation with learning the basics, how to, as a quick start, how to understand the left navigational panel on the left side of the menu, where you have activity, chats, the channels, calendar, calls, and files. Those are let's see, features that you will be using a lot if you start working with Teams. So you will be moving from one to another basically the whole time as you are using the application. So it's important that you understand what you can do in each of the icons. And last but not least, and I think this is one of the most important points of today's session, is how to set up a meeting using Microsoft Teams. Obviously, this is an event. Let's call it official event, some sort of training, walkthrough, demo, you name it. And that's why I sent out an official invitation to set up this session. Nevertheless, you can use Teams as a one-to-one meeting, as we probably are using these days with colleagues, so 2 or 3 colleagues. Just instead of having a phone call, you can use the chat, you can use an audio call, and you can share and communicate with your own colleagues, wherever they are. But you can create an official meeting training event using Outlook, linked with Teams, and that's an important feature. But you can create an official meeting only using the Teams application as well. And we will create a meeting using both, and you tell me which one you like the most. Since we linked Outlook with the Teams, with the application, now it's much better. And you'll see that that it's more efficient, and you will be able to add participants in just 2 or 3 clicks instead of adding one at a time with the email addresses. Then we will show you how to record a meeting. In this case, you know that, well, I started the recording, but how to retrieve the recording and how you can share those recordings with other colleagues. And then a Q&A at the end, in case that there's something that we missed or you want me to repeat or something to clarify, okay? So I will try to go through the chat as I'm delivering the session, but I kind of like I put you on the spot, Brian. If you can just take a look at the chat from time to time, I would appreciate it, because I know that you know a lot about Teams already. So thank you for that. So first of all, learning the basics, where we can find Teams in my computer now. And now I'm going to jump from this presentation to the, let's say, my demo. Basically, if I go to my own computer, here, let me log in my BDI. So let's see that I'm working in my office in Valencia, and this is my Outlook. Here in the left panel, in the start icon, I have a series of applications and different things that I have within my own BDI, right? If I want to use Teams, I have to look up for the application itself, which is over here, and I double click. And sometimes I don't find it here on the right side, so it's always interesting to just pin this application to the rest of applications that you use a lot, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Skype, Project, or Outlook. So once you find the application, you right-click, and you pin to start. You'll see automatically the application, it's within your own start. So every time that I click here on the Windows icon, Microsoft Teams will be over there. Okay, so that's at least something to, to avoid to go scrolling up and down and trying to find the application. So it's already over there. Okay. Then let me go back to the presentation. You see that in the screenshots that I put together, more or less, you'll have an idea of where to click. Okay, as I'm going through the demo. Okay, but then as well, as I said before, you can use the Teams application online. And how to do that? Meaning that you are not using your own BDI remotely. You are using your own computer with an internet connection. So it's as easy as going to the Teams Microsoft, to this URL. Okay, so let me go to the URL over here. So this is the official Microsoft Office webpage. And I'm going to the web. I'm clicking on this URL, teams.microsoft.com. And then Microsoft Teams will be opening. Okay, now it's opening in online because I already logged in. But you, for sure, you will be requested, as we are usually receiving, to verify your own identity by inputting your email address, your EDMS password, and then you will probably receive an SMS in order to access the remote applications in Office. As we always do for checking our email, you will have to verify your own credentials while you try to log in through Microsoft Teams. Okay. So this is the way. It's the same thing. Okay, it's the same view that I have in my own VDI, but it's a remote access. As you can see, there is a bar over here where I can input my own or different URLs online over here. Okay, so I'm closing that one, and I'm gonna go back to Teams. All right. I hope everything is good and you hear me well. Okay, let me just check the chat. Okay, I see David already joined and Valentina Fortini. Okay, as you can see in the chat, meeting recording has started. So this chat is some sort of like a feed, like a log of the different actions that people, in terms of questions, answers, the different actions that I'm doing, like recording, like for example, sending a particular file, everything will be logged in this meeting chat. Okay, and the good thing about Teams is that when we finish, when I click here on hang up, when we finish the session, you can always go back to the chat and retrieve all the different chats, all the different files, and all the different things that has been happening in the session. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation. And as I said before, Brian, if there is something that requires you to chip in or whatever you want to say, you're most welcome. Okay, so
I'll find out, Daniel.
Thank you. So that's the URL. in order to find in Teams online. Okay, you sign with your Office 365 username and password. There is an additional verification, such a code from a mobile device when you sign in, and then you will be accessing the application. Okay, so how to access is quite straightforward, okay, in case that you didn't know. And then we're going to go through the basic navigations, and in the left navigational panel, as you can see, there are five, six main icons, which is activity, chat, number 3, Teams, 4th, calendar, calls, files, and then these 3 dots. We'll go one by one, and we will give you kind of like which are the main aspects, the main things that you can find in each of these features. We shall start with activity, which it's some sort of like a log, like a feed that will show all the notifications and everything that has been happening lately in all the channels and all the chats that you belong. So whatever happens in the different channels or teams that you belong within the application will be shown over there. So you can retrieve chats, calls, missed calls, reactions from your colleagues to your messages, mentions to you. Everything can be retrieved from the activity tab. So let me go back to this, and as you can see, this activity, okay, this is this bell, the first one, activity. Here I have a feed, and I see that Elena, for example, reacted to my message. If I want to see exactly what's that reaction, for example, I just click here, and I see, you see it's highlighted in yellow that she gave a thumbs up to something that I said in a previous meeting that we had in the mission liquidation. You see, even so once you click on the reaction of one of the colleagues, you go directly to the chat, to the, let's say, channel that you created in order to work, okay? And from there, you can retrieve all the things that was said in the training, okay? So, for example, Amarin posted in the general part on the Moja coordination service, he posted a particular post over here, okay? So what he did is he added the MS Teams quick guides into the channel, okay? So everything that's been happening in all the channels and chats that I belong, Daniel Criado belongs, will be over here. Missed calls, as I mentioned before, reactions, mentions that are linked to your own user, voicemails from colleagues in case that you were not around and they left you a voice message, and so on and so forth. But the good thing is just besides all these different items is just you can go directly to the chat or to the channel itself. So for example, here in PVIX, which is the Power BI channel that I belong, Xiao posted something, and once I click on this mention in my activity, I go directly to the post in general in the Power BI. So I don't have to go to the channel itself and look for this particular post from Xiao. Okay, so this is a good one. So this activity, it's some sort of like a feed, like a log that shows all the notifications and everything that's been happening in the application. So as you can see, you have unread messages, mentions, replies, reactions, missed calls, voicemails, apps, and trending topics. Then icon number 2, which is the chat, that's devoted only for the chats that you have been holding with different colleagues. So let me go to the application. And please stop me if there is something that you want me to repeat, or if there is something if I go too fast, okay? But I'm clicking here on the chat. Chat is basically the same that activity, but now it's, let's say, linked to the chats, only to the chats that you are holding. So lately I had different chats with Gianluca, for example. This one, working with Microsoft Teams, this is our chat currently, right now. And you see that the meeting is being recorded because you see this red dot over there, okay? And you can see that we are 43 people already joined, okay? And the breakdown of the people are over here. These are the first ones joining, Richard and then Teuta and so on. But I can go to other chats Like, for example, these ones that we had in the TM, in transportation management training, that Brian delivered last week. You can see I can just go directly on the right side. I can just scroll up and go see everything that has happened in that training that was held last week. Even I can react to some of the comments, even though that the training has already passed. I can react and I can type new messages, and so on. So that's related to the chat. Obviously, if you want to filter, because there are plenty of chats, and especially now these weeks that we're going to work remotely, we're going to have plenty of chats, plenty of interactions with 1, 2, 3 colleagues, sessions that you're invited, sessions that you create. So sometimes it's better to filter by keyword and just identify, for example, liquidation. That's the liquidation project, the initial liquidation project for training. So I'm only interested in that particular chat. You see, it's found. I go there and I see the different posts and chats that our colleagues have been including. So as you work with Teams, you'll see that the activity and the chat icons will be increasing and increasing, because that's actually tracking down all the different communications that you have been holding with different colleagues across the board. So as I said, activity and chat, a log that it's used to reference all the different activities that you have been doing in the past weeks. You see, this is links to the notification part. You see that there is one red number 1 over here. That means that I have a question from King Hui, what I see, if I go there. And he's asking, how do you close filter out all the irrelevant chats? Okay, so that's something that even you can filter over here, but that will be just something that you do right now, but it will not be taken into account in the following, let's say, sessions. But I invite you to go to your own, let's say, profile. You see, this is my profile in Teams or Outlook. If I go there, I click there, and then I go to settings. Once you go to settings there are plenty of things that you can customize for your own, based on your own needs. Like the theme, for example, you can use the dark or high contrast in terms of image, the language. But if we go to notifications, there you can even identify in terms of messages, mentions, and other, you can customize based on your needs. For example, all the chat messages, I just want them off. You can select on off, and they will not be included in the chat panel here in the left side. Okay, you can select banner. Banner will be that it will be appearing on the left part as it appeared before. And if you want a banner, an email, every time that something is set within a chat that you belong to, you will be receiving, besides the banner, and an email, which I don't know whether that's interesting, because you will be swamped with plenty of emails and notifications. Okay, but you can actually put off all the different messages and mentions related to the chat and activities. Okay, related to a particular filtering, meaning that, for example, there is a particular list of I don't know, I belong to a project that is already decommissioned, and all the people who were in that particular project, I don't want to receive any type of chat from. To the best of my knowledge, we cannot filter by name, but what we can do is we can set off all the different messages in the chat by using these settings in our own profile. As you can see, I will go again. I click on my own, let's say, profile. You can set the status messages, settings, notifications, and from there you can select let's say the team role changes, for example, notification sounds, missed activity emails, everything related to messages and replies to conversations that I started or I replied to, and so on. Okay, it's clear that sometimes the more you you start using Teams, the more chats and information that you get on the left panel, and you're kind of like keen to filter and to get rid of information that it's not important in that particular moment to you. So I think that we will try to see and understand whether you can filter by member or by keyword, and only stay with that particular piece of information in the left side, rather than having everything from the past chats on the left channel. Okay. Obviously, yes, as Christina is saying, you see she's reacting, and I'm giving her a thumbs up. Okay, so that's my reaction to her message. What you can do is you can hide. You see that close to the chat in the 3 dots. If you click there, you can hide, you can mute, you can mark as unread, or notify when, in this case, Maria Soledad Evangelio is available. Okay. But let me, for example, Alejandro Polit, I can mute him. Excuse me, I can hide him. And he's out of my chat now, okay? But that will not be preventing Alejandro to drop me a chat and appearing here in the chat. So it will be one at a time. I'm basically removing one chat at a time. I'm not filtering out a specific staff member or people or stuff like that, okay? So that's in terms of the chat. Then we'll go to the third icon, which is Teams. Okay, as you can see, I'm navigating through the left side over here. Okay, and as I'm going to the left side, always the chat is over here, right? So I can scroll down, I can see what is the latest question, comment, reaction to the session itself. That's why, as a recommendation, if you are delivering a training or event to more than 10 people, let's say, it's always advisable to have a colleague of yours monitoring the chat, because sometimes as you're delivering the session, people are reacting and saying some important remarks that if you are in the just live speaking or trying to follow a demonstration, you may miss all those comments in the chat. That's why it's advisable to have some other colleague monitoring and tracking down all those different comments. And that's why, for example, Brian is doing that right now for me. So, it's always a teamwork collaboration in case that you are holding an event, some sort of demonstration, or if you want to, for example, present a particular tool or a project to a large amount of people. If you can have one of the colleagues monitoring the chat, that will be great. So more things in Teams. That's the third icon, Teams over here. If I click here on Teams, I have the list of channels or teams. I don't want to call it teams because Teams is the same name that the application itself, and we may get confused. But these are the different channels, official channels that I belong. Okay, so first of all, I belong to the Moya support team or channel, which has 2 sub-channels, general and TM deployment support. Okay, with different posts and different notifications within each one of them. Okay, then I belong to the supply chain planning community with different sub channels over there. Okay, so you can reduce, and just by clicking on this arrow, you expand and you reduce the number of sub channels. Then I belong to the OSCM, the Office of Supply Chain Management in DOS, with 1 general sub-channel and one hidden channel, which is the ServiceMe COVID-19 WG, but you can show, okay? I can just click there and show. So all the posts and all the files included in that sub-channel will be there. And then I belong to let's see, the channel, official channel from our own team, the training team, which currently has a 1 general, and then the source to acquire training that Elena created. So she's already posting files over there. So that's, let's say, the place where every time that we want to hold a meeting or every time that we want to share information within the people that are working in this particular training, that's the place to meet, let's say. And how do I know the number of people linked in this channel by clicking on these icons here, and I'd see the members included in this, let's say, channel, which is myself, Elena Carrasco, Sol Evangelio, and Saida Zakir. So 4, okay? So then you can manage and the channel itself, okay? But you can see that the owners in this case is Elena Carrasco, so she will be the one that's adding people, removing people into the channel, because she's the one who owns, the one who created initially this channel, as she's the lead of the project, okay? So, and so on and so forth. Moya Coordination Service, this PVX, which is the Power BI. You'll see that one channels are more active than the others. And I created these ones, this test and test 2. These ones are channels that I created, so I can delete them. I can delete the team or the channel. There is a warning. Are you sure that you want to delete this channel, or chats, files, and Office 365 group for this team will be deleted? That's an important, let's say, message, because sometimes you may think that we have a lot of channels and you just delete them, but what you're deleting is all the files and information and communications shared within that team, and you may miss and you may lose important information. So just make sure that when you want to delete a team or a channel, you know what you're doing, okay? So I'm deleting because this is, let me see, delete the team, okay. And then I can delete the team as well. It's 1, 2. Okay. Then what about if I want to create a channel? Okay. Like, for example, Elena did for this source to acquire training. Okay. So you just click here on join or create a team. Here, everyone has the same credentials. So regardless your position, regardless your, let's say, where you're working, everyone has the same level of access and the same rights in Microsoft Teams. So myself, Elena, Cyril, Brian, Chiara, everyone can join or create a team. So I'm clicking over there. And you have different options. You can create a team from the scratch, or you can join some other teams already created, okay, across the board. If you want to create a team, you click on the button, and there you can create from the scratch, or you can create from an already existing team in the application, okay? I would recommend you to just build it from the scratch. So you know exactly which are the different steps. You can make it private or public. Private is these people will need permission to join, and public, anyone in the organization in the UN will be able to join. If you click on private, then you give a name to your team. You can put a description of it. You create. And then you can start adding members. I can put Brian. The good thing is because Microsoft Teams is connected through Outlook 365 to our Outlook application. Basically, I'm looking up for email addresses that I have in my own contacts and the UN as a whole. Okay, so I can put, for example, Robert Holden there. And when I finish my members, when I'm okay with the number of members in this particular channel, you close. As you can see, it's already created. Okay, I will remove this channel afterwards. Okay, and after it's been created, you can create more channels, you can add more people, and you can post files. We'll see how to do that after that. Okay, so that's for the teams, for the different channels that you belong or you want to create. Okay.
And Daniel?
Yes, Ryan?
Sorry, just a quick one. Since you just added Robert and myself, right? If we didn't want to be in your channel, let's say that we finished talking about what we need to talk about, each person can actually leave the channel by clicking on those 3 dots, right? You have the leave the team right there. So you don't have to wait for the organizer to get to actually remove you from there. You can do it yourself.
Exactly. Because yes, I think it's intended, these channels, this Teams channel is intended to make it dynamic, right? So, you know, you just use it and then leave it. Or there are particular channels that are official and not very important, so they will stay over there, like the ones that you see on the left panel. But there are other teams that are linked to a particular project that has an end and has has a start date and an end date. And then when it's already agreed that the project is finished and all the files are already, let's say, retrieved and stored, then you can leave the team and then remove whoever owns the team, remove it from the left side. Thank you, Brian, for that. So in terms of calendar, which is the fourth icon on the left part, that's basically a calendar linked to the different events, teams events that you're involved with. Okay, as you can see, working with Microsoft Teams, it's already over there. It's in dark purple because it's the one that it's happening right now. And as you can see, it's 3:33 p.m. in Valencia and Brindisi, and that's why you see this is the, let's say, the timeline that belongs to this particular session that it's supposed to finish around 4 o'clock. So I better rush up to show you everything. Okay, so that's we'll get back to this in order to create a meeting afterwards, but that's an easy, I mean, it's just a calendar like the one you have in Outlook. Then for calls, that's the fifth icon in the left side. Calls, these are speed dials, different people that you have and you usually deal with. If I want to call Brian, I just click here. If I want to have a video conference with Casimiro, I just click here on the camera, or I can chat, or I can remove him from the speed dial or from this group. Okay, you can manage as you wish this speed dial. But then in terms of contacts, these are different contacts. This is linked automatically to your contacts in Outlook. Okay, history, the different calls that you've been making, and then voicemails in case that you have any voicemail. Okay, so that's like a log of calls. And then last, and this is the one of the most important, files. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation. As you can see in the presentation, everything is with different screens in the left navigational panel. Now we're in the files. Okay, files. This is very important. Why? Because the first option here, recent, are all the files that have been shared across the board. Regardless, we're talking about channels, subchannels, chats that you created, chats that you've been involved with. So everything is stored over here. Okay, and you have the name of the file, when it was modified or let's say shared, and its location. Okay, for example, this MS Teams guide from Microsoft, it was posted 6 hours ago, and it's within DOS LD UCS General. Okay, so let me go back to DOS UCS General. So I go to Teams, DOS UCS General. So the file should be, if I go to files over here in the top, let's see, DOS UCS General, maybe, let me see. Let me go back to the files. So DOS LD UCS, so let me see. So it's DOS UCS. Okay, should be around here. So I know that the file is stored within one of the channels, but nevertheless, what I can do is I can retrieve and I can download that particular file in my own, let's say, here in downloads, in my own, let's say, sub view in files. And you can do that for any of the recent files shared across the boards. So as you can see, there is a date modified, there is a location as well. So I want to give you a heads up on this because sometimes, for example, I'm going to deliver a project along with a couple of my colleagues in the training team, and we created a channel for that, and I'm supposed to create a design matrix. It's not still, it's a draft mode, but for whatever reason, I just posted in my channel. I have to bear in mind that whatever I post in my channel might be subject to be seen by some other colleagues in the channel. Okay, and if this project file, it's only in draft mode, and someone retrieves that file, that piece of information from this recent file, may think that that's an official document and may have access to information that is not updated or ready yet. So just I want to bear your attention that whatever you share, it will be logged here in this recent for some other colleagues. Okay, so just bear in mind that sometimes if you are not sure if everyone should see a particular piece of information, please do not share in Teams until you think it's ready. Okay, because I can have access to plenty of information for some other posted by some other colleagues over here, regardless whether I've been involved actively in that channel or not. Okay. So that's recent. It's a log of files. Remember, I mean files in this sixth icon. But if I go to Microsoft Teams, the second one, that will reduce the number of files in a way, and will be showing only the files shared within the channels. Whereas recent are linked to files shared in the channels, as well as files shared in different chats that I've been holding with different colleagues. So I may, I don't know, have a picture of my dog that I want to share with Brian in a one-to-one conversation, and that picture may be appearing here, being accessible to another colleague from the team. So just highlight because sometimes if you're really not acquainted with the application, sometimes you're just wondering why I have access to certain information that you think that you shouldn't, right? And the other way around. But that's in recent, that actually has everything. Then if I go to Microsoft Teams, this is all the files shared across the different sites, all the different channels that I belong, okay? That's it. And who modified, who created, and the name of the file. And obviously you can click on the three dots, download, get the link, edit in Teams, open in browser. I know that this is an Excel, for example, that it was shared by Patricia Carolo yesterday, for example. So in Microsoft Teams, if I go to downloads, I will see the different files that I have downloaded. Remember that I click in two of them, click in one, which is the MS Teams guide for Microsoft PDF. This is already ready for me to be used. I can just open this one. I will not do that, but it's a PDF document, okay? And then this is the fourth one, which is the OneDrive, and I want you to have a particular attention. I want you to have a particular attention to this one, because this OneDrive cloud, it's a cloud storage. So this is my own OneDrive from Daniel Criado, linked to my user, okay? This one is accessible only by me. Okay, so I created in my own OneDrive, in my cloud, let's say, different folders, as you can see, Teams chat files, VTC physical verification, and so on, and different files over here. These ones are only accessible by myself. Okay, if I want to share, if I, for example, want to share this particular file, I can copy the link and I can share with some other colleague, okay? But this, let's say, list of information will not be accessible to anyone accessing Teams regardless the channel, okay? So this is, let's say, the link between Teams as an application and your own OneDrive. Both of them are Microsoft applications, okay? So the beauty of all this is at the end of the day, it's you're working with Outlook, with Teams, and with your own OneDrive in one single, let's say, scenario. And, that's cool because that prevents you to, opening and closing different applications and, makes everything much easier and efficient. That's my take on this, okay? So that's the part of files where you can find, where the track where you can see your downloads and your own drive. But as we saw before, if you go to chat, for example, then I go to, for example, this trainer approach, that this is a chat that we had early this morning with Brian and some other colleagues. I can retrieve the files the files that Brian, for example, shared previously this morning from here, from the chat itself, Or I can go here in Files in the second, let's say, tab within this chat, and I can retrieve it from there. I can get it from there as well. So all the files that are going to be posted in all the chats will be accessed as well in the Files tab related to that particular chat. Okay. The same will occur if we are navigating through the different channels and teams. So if I go, for example, in Source to Acquire Training, Files, here I have the transactions for Source to Acquire. If I go, for example, for, let's say, Module Support General, if there are files, there will be over here. So far, I can see that no, in this particular sub-channel in Module Support, there are no files. If I go to the second one in TM Deployment Support, I see that there are plenty of files related to transportation management, okay, posted by Lee back last year. So several ways to retrieve files. I hope it's clear. Either in the Files tab within the channel, or you go to the icon Files, and there you can navigate through the different options. Okay. Let me check the chat. So I go to the chat on my left panel. The recent, this is the last one, okay, working with Microsoft Teams. If I go all the way to the bottom, I can see that Anna reacted, Joe Napoli as well, okay? So I see that Joe says, it looks like files you saved to your OneDrive also show up in the Files channel, exactly. So it's automatically synchronized, Joseph. So every time that you are, let's say, maneuvering and creating files within your own OneDrive will be automatically accessed if you go click here in your own OneDrive. Okay. So as I said, that's the beauty of having all these applications synchronized. It's that you can really work efficiently if you have your own OneDrive well sorted and organized, okay? Because you will be accessible directly from Teams. Okay, so let me see more in the chat. So as you can see, you can follow all the chat, and people are actually asking, some people are answering questions from colleagues, so thank you for that. I see Elena reacted to some other questions, so thank you for that. So always, as you can see, even though that we will close this session within, let's say, 15 minutes, everyone who was invited to this session can access to this chat and retrieve the files, okay? By the way, I think that I put this presentation, I'm not sure whether I put it there in the chat. Let's see. Okay, I didn't put it. Okay, so at the end of the presentation, I will drag and drop within the chat the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, and it will be accessible either to the files, or you can have it here shown as a, let's say, post in the chat. So let me go back to the presentation. And as you can see, these are the different explanations with the screenshots. So you can, get back to this in case that there's something that was not clear, right? How you can retrieve, how you can download, how you can make a tab, for example. For example, let me just take a look at Teams for Source to Acquire again. You see that this file, the file that was posted by Elena sometime on Tuesday, okay, this one, it's already in a tab, right? It's like a tab itself, okay? And I have a preview of the file in Word, okay? And there you can remove, for example, and it will be disappearing from there, okay? But if I want to have this file again appearing, I can make this file, make this a tab. So the file itself is already shown as a tab, and then you have the file itself in the File tab. So that part is explained in this slide as well. And then we have 15 minutes to show to you how to set up meetings. Okay, there are basically two options. And please, Brian, if there is something or in the chat, or feel free to chip in or to stop me. But yes,
I'll jump in later if you want to. I still don't have visibility on the chat icon, and I think that's because of the way it was probably set up. So I can't see what people are discussing in the chat as of yet. That's like it hasn't happened to me yet, this kind of error. I checked it on the web, and it seems like it comes from the organizer of the meeting, so we can check later.
Okay.
But yeah, nonetheless, what you're going to explain now is very important, and I think that's something you learned the hard way with the chat, right? The chat can be set up to have a conversation between, for example, myself and Daniel. I share files there. Only Daniel and I will see it. If I want to call him, I can call him. If I want to video conference, I can. Then there's a chat that occurs when you have a meeting like this one, where 37 different people are going to have access to any of the files shared there. So that's the one you have to be careful with. Maybe you go back to that chat and you think you're only talking with Daniel, and suddenly you share a file with Daniel, but you're in the chat of this meeting. Everyone's going to have access to it. Okay, so those are the two types of chats you have to be careful with, right? The one from a meeting and the one that you set up the way that Daniel is going to explain to you right now. And then, of course, the one in the channels that you create. There's like 3 different ways you can chat, share files, but always be careful where you're sharing your file, what type of file you're sharing, because a lot of people could have access to it.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you, Brian, for that. And let's set up a meeting one-to-one in case that you don't know. Basically, I will do it live here. You see this small icon on the top here? It's a pen, a pencil. It says new chat. If I click there, automatically I see this banner with the new chat, and I can search for a particular colleague, in this case, Sol Evangelia, for example, and then I will have a chat directly only with her. Okay, so I can just say something. Okay, this is a test. And you can use the icons, and you can attach some files as well here in the clip from OneDrive or from your own computer. This is the OneDrive that is linked to your SharePoint account, okay? The one that Joe was mentioning before in the chat, okay? But let's say I see that Sol is logged in because he's with this green dot. Instead of a chat, if I want to make a video call, I can click here. Or if I want to make an audio call, I can click over here. In this case, if I just want to share about my own screen, I can click here, start sharing my own screen. That's, let's say, the one-to-one. Let's say the chat that Brian was mentioning before. But let's say I can add some other colleague. You see that there is a plus there with an icon. I can enter there, for example, Momo, Cyril Momo, our supervisor, and then I can add him into the conversation as well. So Cyril and Sol are within this chat. Okay, you see Cyril and Maria Soledad Evangelia are over there. So always bear in mind that you can add more people or remove people from a particular, let's say, chat. And I was talking before with another colleague, and I think this is pretty much, well, you know, if we want to make a parallelism between this particular action and then the office itself physically, when you're just talking with a colleague, basically this is when you just drop by your cubicle of a colleague and you ask him something, you ask her for a particular support. Now that we are all working remotely, instead of doing that, obviously we cannot do that, but yes, we can create chats, right? And then I can just look up for a particular colleague, ask him something, and then get rid of that chat. So this is basically the usual support, the usual interaction that you have with your own colleagues in your own group or with other groups within the same building, let's say, or within the same site. So it's quite useful, since we started telecommuting. Basically, I'm, creating like 20 different chats every single day. So it's quite interesting and really quite useful as well. But Brian has said, be aware that if you create a particular group or a particular official invitation, then whatever that's shared will be accessible to plenty of people. So just I just will drag your attention to that fact. If you want to delete the chat, you just discard, and that's it. Okay. So basically a way to delete by clicking on, and Retha is asking, for example, now, if we are, sorry for that, if we are in a meeting like now, can I open secure chat with a closed group at the same time? Yes, you can do that, Retha. Because you are creating, let's say, a one-to-one or one-to-many interaction from the chat itself, but no using, let's say, a meeting feature within Teams. Okay. So, but yes, I mean, the more that we know these things, the better, because sometimes you think you're doing something or you're sharing a particular piece of information with a particular colleague, and it might be accessible to some others. And the same with the files with your own OneDrive. If you do your work in your OneDrive and you have it clean and you do your housekeeping there, you have access to important pieces of information that can be automatically accessed using Teams. Okay, this is the OneDrive. So getting back to the presentation, this is the chat on how to add new colleagues. It's over there, so I will not explain more. Okay, now let's set up an official meeting using Outlook. Okay, this is important because this part I used in order to create this particular session. Okay, so let me go. Let's see if I'm not kicked out to my own VDI. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, this is my own VDI, and I want to drag your attention. This is important. You see this icon on my navigational menu in Outlook. It says New Teams Meeting. Okay, I can go back to the presentation. You see here, New Teams Meeting. Okay, this is a button that can be activated by IT support. Let's see, by campus support or IT support. Why it's important? Because basically this button will be the link between Outlook and Teams when you create an official meeting. How is that? If I click here in New Teams Meeting, you see what happens. There is, let's say, some sort of like a calendar event that it's already in my Outlook and in Teams application, and I can give a title. Okay, to my own official meeting and start inviting people over here. And the good thing is just if I have a list of, let's see, attendees, I don't know if it's over here. Okay, it's not here, but if I have an Excel list of email addresses and I want to copy and paste it here in required, Outlook will identify all those people and will create let's say, an official invitation for every one of them. Okay, so it's very handy because you can copy and paste email addresses in the part of required people and in the part of optional as well. Okay, so let's see that I want to invite Cyril, optional Brian, and then I want to include King Hui as well. Okay, so that's the part of the people you want to invite in Teams, but using Outlook. And it's really quite handy because, as I told you, you copy and paste email addresses. For example, we had a plenary session for property management, and we invited 150 people. It was just a matter of copying and pasting all those email addresses over here, and then everyone in 2 minutes received this meeting invitation. Okay, start time. You set up the date and the time. Okay, so you can make it for, let's say, tomorrow, and then you set up the time. It will be, let's say, from 4 to 4:30. This is my own, let's say, time zone. So this is Brindisi and Valencia time zone. But if I send this invite invitation to King Hui, who currently is in New York, he will receive the invitation according to his own time zone. So it will be, let's say, 11 o'clock in the morning, New York time, okay, for him. So let's say that we want to make this meeting in Teams recurring in a way that we want to have these 30 minutes, let's say, small meeting several days per week. So you click here in Make Recurring, and from there you can set up with more granularity all these different sessions. Okay, so it's going to start from 4 to 4:30, 30 minutes, and I want it to core, let's say, weekly. Let's say Monday, Friday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Okay. And then you can even set up the range of recurrence, let's say from Friday, from tomorrow to, let's say, 9th of April, but you can set up and having this meeting for 3 or 4 months. Okay, so it's quite handy because why? Once we create this recurring meeting, this link, join Microsoft Teams meetings, will never change. So, and even if you make changes, this link that is being already sent out to other colleagues will never change. So you will not have to change the URL. You don't have to change the link whatsoever. Okay, so this is automatically, it's a good thing to know that once you click on new meeting, automatically the link is over there. You see, join Teams meeting is already created for you. It will be only a matter to click here on send. So Cyril, King Hui, and Brian will receive this Teams invitation that is going to take place tomorrow and some other days next week from 4 to 4:30 Brindisi and Valencia time. Okay, and this is the hyperlink that they will have to use. Important as well, I want to drag your attention that when you create a meeting using Outlook, you have these meeting options. This is a very important one. Why? Let me go to and open this hyperlink. You'll go to the online application in Teams. It's already an scheduled meeting, so because I haven't clicked on send, and I have two options basically. First, who can bypass the lobby, and second, who can present. Usually, what we do is who can present. It's only whoever created the meeting, because eventually you can always share the presentation with another colleague invited, or you can request another colleague to take on the presentation and share his or her own screen. So that's actually not a huge limitation, but it's better from the beginning to having only yourself as an owner who can present, and then you can decide afterwards when the meeting is on. But this is important, who can bypass the lobby. Why? The lobby is, let's say, a place where people are invited to a meeting, right? So if, for example, I'm setting up a meeting for 150 people, but I want everyone to have access to my meeting, meaning that I sent officially to 150 people this meeting request. These guys, for example, Brian, who has been officially invited, he can forward the invitation to his friends in Newark, for example, or Elena can forward that meeting invitation to colleagues in ECLAC who were not initially invited to this meeting. And this is important. Why? Because if you set up as everyone can bypass the lobby, these people who have been receiving a forwarding invitation will access Teams with no, let's say, restriction whatsoever. Whereas if I click on people in my organization or people in my organization and trusted organizations, only people with the UN.org type of email will have access to these Teams. And whoever was invited by someone else will have to be accepted myself by the person who created the meeting before being active in the meeting itself. So that's quite important, and you can access those two. Let's say, let me go back to the. Let's see here. You can access those options by clicking here in meeting options. And the good thing is that you can change your mind as you deem necessary. So it's not like written on stone. Whenever you click here on meeting options and you select a particular drop-down selection, you can change your mind, and instead of being only you the presenter, you can make someone else the presenter as time goes by. So this, let's say, this particular web page will be accessible to you every single time. So you can change your mind and change these features as you deem necessary. So that's important, okay? And only the person who created this meeting in Outlook can access to this particular page. Important, okay? So, that it's happening because I did create my meeting using Outlook. I don't know if we have questions on that, but I really recommend you to, don't save changes. Let me go back. I really recommend you to really have support from your IT, local support, and make these guys to set up this button on your Outlook in case that you don't have it already, because it's a link that is quite useful and handy. So you set up the meeting really fast, and you can invite 200, 300 people in just one shot by copying and pasting the email addresses in the required invitees. It's really, really interesting. But
exactly, Daniel, just
yes.
the add-on that you're just mentioning, the button that you're mentioning is a team meeting add-on. Normally, it should be a Microsoft included add-on that comes with the package of Office 365. But we found out that it's not working with all the machine. For example, remember, Brian is still not working on my VDI, and he works on yours. But on my Office laptop, I have it. So as Daniel said, make sure that you seek maybe campus support, or you're trying to just Google how to install the add-on. Maybe you can get some guide and share with you also later how to install the add-on from MS Team.
Yes.
Hi Jenny. We have them on the Microsoft Outlook. When you create invites for meetings, there's an option to create a meeting as a Microsoft Teams meeting.
Perfect. Okay. So
guys, basically, if you have Teams installed on your computer, as well as Outlook installed on your computer, or if it's VDI on VDI, you will have these. If you are using web and you've never installed actual Teams application, then you would have to go through all the step-by-step to get it there. But if you had both applications actually installed, you would have it. I even see the Skype because I have Skype for Business installed, Teams installed, so everything shows up in the Outlook calendar as long as within the Microsoft suite.
okay.
Daniel, so I'm just going to take 1 second because I do need to jump on something else right away.
Sure.
And it's almost at the end of it. I just want to thank you for this session. It's definitely very useful. I'm probably one of the most vocal guy who says that I hate Teams. That doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't be using it. Jokes apart, this is critical, especially at this time, that we must all use Teams. I'm using Teams, and there is no excuse not to use it. It works intermittently or well. Either way, it works. We can connect. We all have individual laptops or computers to work on it. So please, guys, everybody, if you're not clear, figure it out, but let's use it. And what Can we and Daniel and team has done is gave you the ability to see how to use it effectively. And I'm sure they can continue answering and do these sessions again or record it so you can replay them. But please make sure you guys all use Teams. No other system required at this point with this going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Himanshu and Daniel, this is Reza. I just wanted to add, I need to jump to another meeting as well. A great presentation. Thank you, I think, for taking the initiative and in these difficult times. I would encourage that once everything is done, we look at, instead of meeting face-to-face, Team is replacing face-to-face meetings. So the corporate etiquettes in terms of how we conduct ourselves, how we chat amongst ourselves, it's now recorded. Everything is recorded. The chats are recorded. Everything is recorded. So let us be mindful of how we behave using the corporate etiquette, using Teams. That is very important, and I would really appreciate from the training team in Valencia to come up with like a cheat sheets of do's and don'ts, kind of like a one-pager for everybody to follow.
Okay, thank you, Reza. We'll do so properly.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Reza.
Okay, thank you, Himanshu and Kihui and Reza for that, and Cyril. I'm about to finish, but yes, nice comment from Himanshu, knowing that most of you already have the button. But in case that you don't have it, or you want to use another way, to create a Microsoft Teams meeting, it's as easy as going to your calendar. You see, I'm in the application right now. I'm going to my calendar, and what I do is just any blank space. For example, Thursday 19 after this meeting, or even Friday, let's say, I can just double click in that blank space. I will do it again. So let me just close. You see, it's tomorrow, let's say around just before 3 or around 3 o'clock. I just click on that, let's say, square of time, and automatically I can add a title.
Daniel, as you're adding the title, just emphasis on that. Make sure you guys add a title to a meeting that you create, because there's not an option to edit it afterwards. So you have to make sure the title is there the first time you create it, or in the chat, it'll show as no title instead of the name of the actual meeting you want. So that's something to keep in mind too.
Yes, that's a very good point. Thank you, Brian. Because if we don't put a title, when we go to the chat over here, you see in the left panel, let me click on the chat. Okay, this card. You'll see I will not see a title here, so I cannot define and I cannot look up as time goes by. I cannot retrieve the information so easily, right? So if I want to look up for a particular name and I didn't put a name for that particular project, then it will be more difficult for me to find it, right? So for example, here you see no title. Okay, I see a chat here with no title. That means that when I created here in calendar, when I created a particular Teams meeting, I didn't add a title. And that's why Brian said, please make sure to add a title in the meeting request, because that will be easier for you to identify the chat afterwards. And then this is the difference with the Outlook application in terms of adding attendees, right? If I put there Brian, okay, the system will find Brian, but I will have to key in every single invitee within this new meeting request. For example, Cyril over there, but I cannot copy and paste email addresses, or it will be really hard if I want to invite 150 people to a particular session to copy and paste all the email addresses, because the system does not recognize very well email addresses in this particular application. So this is a limitation that I want you to be knowledgeable of, because sometimes, and we did experience this in the past, so it's not fun to key in 50, 60 names instead of just copying and pasting in just one single click 30 or 50 email addresses. Okay, the same will occur with the recurrence of the meetings as well, the dates, the time, that doesn't change. Then you can add a channel. So I can create a meeting adding a particular channel. This is an added value of creating a meeting using Teams instead of Outlook, because I can link this particular meeting to a particular channel, for example, test 3 in general. So automatically this meeting will be linked to this particular project or channel. Add a location, where these are basically our remote locations, and then you can have the invitation and type their instructions for the attendees, okay, and you can send it. Then in case that you want to have a particular scheduling assistant, you can have here your own calendar and identify from the required attendees who is available, who is not available, the time slots that you have free or not. So that's the scheduling assistant in case that you want to go through, but otherwise it's as easy as insert the title, add in the invitees, make sure the dates and times are correct, and then link it to a particular channel. It's not compulsory, but you can link it to a particular channel if that is the case, and set up the type details for this new meeting and send it. So if I go back to the presentation.
Yeah, sorry, before you close it.
Sure.
Just because this happened to us when we first started using Teams during ramp up, right? We maybe not have that button in the Outlook application to create the meeting from there. So what we used to do as a workaround was, for example, generate a meeting in Teams, invite one person, for example, Cyril or Daniel or whoever, send it. And then when that is created, you go back to the calendar in Teams, just copy that link that is created there, and then you create your Outlook calendar event. It's a workaround for those of you who may not have that possibility of creating a Teams directly on Outlook, and it may take a week for you to get it, or who knows how long. There's always a workaround like this.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. Yeah, workaround to basically link manually the Teams application with Outlook. Okay, in case getting back to to my Outlook in case that you do not have this button on the navigational menu in Outlook, okay, in the case. So we're about to finish, and as you can see in the presentation, you have all the different instructions to create the meetings and how to do it through Outlook and how to do it through the Teams applications. As I can see, watch out here, watch out when you add the attendees, because you will have to do it one by one instead of copying and pasting an Outlook invitation that it's easier. Okay, just watch out. Then if we find a workaround to copy and paste emails using the Teams application for a new meeting, we will let you know. But so far, or at least to the best of our knowledge, we haven't been able to do it. Then some limitations. Watch out on limitations. Okay, kind of like linked to what Reza said before. Okay, I have a couple of slides on things that you have to bear in mind. First, sometimes you wonder, you know, I have so many missed calls or chats that I have not been attending. Why? Because you don't have a pop-up window that appears, as it happens with Skype and some other applications, that you know, kind of like highlights that someone is calling you, that someone is trying to reach out to you. Usually by default, those notifications are not happening in Teams. That's why sometimes you're working in your computer and then you wonder, oh, there is one unread message there from Brian and Juan. Okay, and you wonder that, you know, it's from 8:52 a.m. and it's like almost 4 o'clock. It's like, oh my God. So the notification part, it's not quite, let's say, sound in a way, not quite designed in Teams. So I would really, I'm missing some notifications or pop-up windows that will, you know, at least highlight that you have an incoming call, that you have a chat, that you have a notification coming. If because usually we have Teams applications open, but we're not working constantly there. We're maybe in Outlook using our Excel sheet, we may be on the phone, but it will not be appearing there in Teams application. So watch out that. And then another limitation that we actually tested is that you cannot download the chat and export to Word. And if any of you can do that, please tell us, because that's something that really it's been a pain for the past 3-4 weeks because we've been really delivering a lot of trainings using Teams, and you know, the amount of information, very important, the comments, the Q&A that, you know, enrich the whole the training. It's a pity that we cannot download in just one click. So basically, we have to go all the way from up to the bottom and copy and paste the important questions and the comments and then paste it into a Word document. So far, we reached out to Microsoft and we posted there, and apparently we are not the only users who are complaining about this. So eventually in a new, let's say, release, probably this will be a feature that will be included in Teams to download a whole chat and put it in Word. Okay, so as I said, if you have the answer to that, you know, that will really make our life very easy. And last but not least, really, how to retrieve your video recording. Okay, so this is the last slide. I'm now recording the session. I will make this session available for you in 5-10 minutes. How do I do that? Okay, there is an application in Outlook 365, besides the ones that we already know, called Stream. This Stream application, it's a place where all your videos will be stored. All the videos coming from Teams will be stored for you. So you can go to them, you can edit them, you can trim them, you can cut, you can change, you can edit, and you can share with other colleagues. You can download those videos. So let me go to my, let's say, videos there. As you can see, this is my Microsoft Stream page. So basically, when you go there to your apps or in Office 365, you select Stream. As you select Outlook or OneDrive, Excel, Teams, you select Stream. And there I can find all the videos that have been created related to training in the past, let's say, 2-3 weeks. So I can click, for example, this one in property management training, and automatically the video will start right now, right? And I can just go through the video again, or I can change or share with colleagues with this link. So what I will do is basically the same thing. With that video is automatically in my stream page, because that automatically happens when I click on stop recording. Automatically that video will be stored in my own stream application. And what I will do is I will copy this link to the video, to this particular session. And from there, I will send it to you in an email, and you will be accessing this particular video anytime you want. What I can do as well, I can download the video here. And that the good thing is that the video will be downloaded in MP4. So you can upload it in YouTube. We can upload all these videos in our YouTube webpage for UCS training team as well. So this is just an application for you to take a, especially if you start recording sessions or recording meetings, if that is the case. You can find all of them in stream over here. From there, you can share, you can download, or you can go through again the session, okay? And everything will be stored and will not be deleted. And it's a good place it's a repository of the work that we have been doing in the past weeks, for example, okay? So that's the part of the stream, as you can see. And sorry, because I went 20 minutes above the foreseen, let's say, end of story, but we wanted to convey the message that, from now on, as Reza and Himanshu said, we are going to work very, let's say, we're going to work a lot in Teams, using Teams. So the amount of different channels, chats, invitations, meetings will be huge in the next weeks. It's a good thing that we do have the application right away in our VDI, and it's accessible through the online remote application as well. We are learning as we're using the Teams application. So obviously you will find things that we already do not know at this minute. And the moment that we learned that something is interesting for you, we will share with you. Because the more that we start using, the more that we change and exchange information, really the better for all of us, especially in these particular times. So a good thing, the Teams application, it's here. Not so good that we have to use it because of this situation, but apparently, it's going to be at least some more weeks. So I think it's important that we are knowledgeable about how to use it, how to log in. And as I said, we are here to help. We hope that the session was useful. Before I close, I don't know, Brian, if you want to say something something I missed, or Cyril, over to you.
No, thank you very much, Daniel and Brian. Thank you also to Kinvi, because we have to say the initiative of launching this walkthrough in the midst of this situation, came from him. So I want to say thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you also. Sorry, we didn't have very much time to plan. So essentially, this was a bit more general. But I just wanted to emphasize that the chat is open and you stay open for a little while. So if you have any specific use cases that you'd like to mention to Danny and the team, then those can be addressed individually, because I've just put some myself. One of the things that I find personally useful is having video chats with multiple colleagues using the chat function, and also so I think some of these things, it comes with practice, but definitely if you need to figure out, we can keep the questions Q&A coming for a few more days so that we can address them in writing. Okay, thank you, Daniel and Cyril and the team.
Okay, so thank you for your time, and stay safe and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.